What is going on, everybody? It is Bush Fishing and we are back, and today we're going to be doing kind of a full day. We have a lot of stuff to do. We got 3 boats that we need to get done, and we'll talk more about those once we get into the shop. I have Mr. Spanky with me. You guys haven't seen a video in a while. I was sick for a long time, and right when I was getting back into it, then we kind of stopped, so now we're back to it, and we're going to get cooking. If you guys want any ST Marine merch, first link down below in the description. And yeah, hopefully we get a bunch done today. What do you think?
It's cold outside.
It is very cold, and so we'll talk about the actual jobs once we get to the shop, but it is 9:21 right now. We got about a half-hour ride into the shop. I do have some big news. We will be getting a new shop, a bigger one that we can have drop-offs and people walk in, stuff like that, but we'll talk more about that later. So for now, we're gonna get into the shop. So we'll see you there. All right, everybody, so we made it here. This is our Mastercraft. It is a Prosport 210, I believe. It's got the Ford in it. It's got the 285. Prosport 205, my bad. So I just went over the invoices he sent me for what was already done to the boat. This engine overheated. It was taking on water. They replaced the thermostat, kind of fixed the overheat and all the stuff that melted on it. Put it back together. They ran it. It ran fine. When they put it on the trailer, it was dying. Then the next guy rebuilt the carbs on it and then did some stuff with the ignition system. But I believe the last complaint that he had was it would run, and as soon as it gets hot, gets up to temp, it shuts itself off. So I'm gonna get the tray out, we're gonna hook it up to water, and we're gonna run it first, get it up to temp, get it hot, kind of warm everything up, see where we're at from there, and then kind of keep going. And I'm gonna double check with the customer and see what he has to say about it. So let me get set up, let me get the donkey dick hooked up, and we'll get this thing running. Alrighty, so we got the battery switch on. Hopefully the battery's got enough to start it. It's carb, so we're gonna give her a little spray of some go-go juice. And we've got the donkey deck hooked up to the hose. The valve's shut now. Once it starts, then we turn on the water. So let's see if she'll go. Oh, I'm gonna have to put the jump pack on it. All right, let me get that set up. So, I'm trying to get to the battery. Back compartment's frozen shut, but we remove the bench. And then once we get this out, we'll get access to our battery. We gotta thaw it out. And then we'll get her jumped, and then we'll get her running. All right, jumper's hooked up. It started really well. Start must be doing okay. We got it primed up with fuel. We're gonna let it run for a little bit till she comes up to temp. You can see we're cold, but we got the water on it. We're gonna let it run, get up to temp, and then we're gonna start messing with stuff. And pretty much just gonna let it idle and get hot, and then see if it does shut itself off once it gets up to temp. But I'm gonna be watching to see what temperature it does get up to. But if I grab the camera, you can see she's fiddling out, so we're all good there. Alrighty, so you can probably hear the boat running in the back. We're gonna let that thing run for a long time. It's up to temp now, but he says when it gets hot, it shuts off, and you obviously can't get it as hot as it would be if it was under load on the lake, but it is the middle of winter, so we can't really do that. So we're gonna run it and just pray to God something gets hot and lets loose or shuts off. But our next boat, which you'll see in a second, it's another, no, that's not a Starcraft. The one we're pulling in is the Starcraft, that's Mastercraft. And we have a third Starcraft, which the part's coming today for tomorrow. But on this one, we have driver's side docking light not working, tower speakers not working, speedometer not working. He wants to put a new prop on for power, and then just an oil change, winterize, which is already done, shrink wrap, and there's 6 hours of fiberglass repair on there, which you'll see in a second. There's a couple chips around the back on the transom, and then a bunch of scratches on the port side, and he just wants it perfect. And then there's a seat that needs to get pulled off so it can get sent out for upholstery. So we're gonna open up that boat. I think I'm just gonna go down the list, start with the docking light, go to tower speakers, speedometer, and kind of work down from there. Those are the 3 main diagnostic ones. Other than that, it's just basic stuff. And the sanding's gonna take a while, but hopefully we'll finish that today. Hopefully this video doesn't look like buns because I switched. I normally record in 60 FPS. I'm recording in 23. But yeah, we're gonna sit for a little, come up with a plan of attack, and get to it.
Okay.
Alrighty, so here's our boat. See another beautiful Starcraft. Go through the accessories. Blower works, bilge pump works, nav lights on, the green and red. Nav lights, anchor light. Yeah, you guys can't see that. Anchor lights on, docking lights. We got nothing on the docking lights. The switch isn't even powering up, and neither is the courtesy lights, which this is wired in to these lights, the forward and aft facing ones. And horn, yep, horn works. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop that panel out, and I'm gonna look on the backside, make sure the wires didn't pull off or something, and then see if I can get power through the switch, because obviously docking lights aren't gonna work if the switch isn't even powering up. All right, so there's our screws pulled out, and we're gonna pop this panel out, and there's our wiring. We were running it, we were working on the Starcraft, getting that opened up, and this one shut off. So that lets us know there is an issue. First thing I did is I put the spark tester in line here, and it is sparking, but it kind of looks like a weak spark. And then I gave it some brake clean just to see if maybe it stopped pumping fuel into itself, but it doesn't start when you spray it, so that lets me know it's not a fuel issue. So it's sparking and it has fuel. I'm gonna put this back in line with a different plug, and we're gonna see, make sure that cylinder is sparking. It's sparking pretty consistently. Not the brightest spark, but the coil did get warm. The coil is actually really hot right now. If we do have an overheating coil, that could cause weak spark, which would kind of cause these issues when it gets hot. So let me look into that for a little bit. I'm gonna see if there's a coil nearby that I could grab and swap out, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody, so here's where we're at. We pulled the coil out and tested it with the meter. So across the two positive and ground terminals, we're getting 1 ohm, which is fine, that's within spec. When you go from the output to one of the terminals, we're getting 9,000 ohms. The spec for it is, I believe, closer to 13. It's definitely much higher than what it is. So we're gonna swap coils. I'm gonna keep this coil and I'm gonna let it cool off, and we're gonna test it again and see if it comes up. If it does, that kind of confirms, because when the engine shut off, this coil was hot, and I've seen it before on different styles, but when they overheat, it'll shut off. So we're gonna run to Napa, which is about 10 minutes away, grab a new coil, come back, throw it in, run the boat again, and while we do that, we'll work on the Starcraft, and hopefully she doesn't shut off. But it ran for what, like an hour?
Just over about.
Yeah, around like an hour before it actually shut off, so it's a good thing we left it running. But we're gonna close up, grab one of these, and then we'll see you when we're back here. Oh, Jesus Christ. My hair's all messed up, but all right, so where we're at here, the lights are fixed. Oh, yeah. Lights are fixed. Tower speakers are now working. The whole issue with that was it has 2 batteries, but the second battery wasn't wired into the engine, so it wasn't charging while it was running, so that battery was dead, and the amp just wasn't kicking on, but I needed to tune that anyway. So the amp's tuned, tower speakers work. Can't show you that because I'll get copyrighted. Docking light pulled out. The bulb looks fine, but there's something weird, so I need to mess with that a little more. Grant, as you can see by the B-roll, is down here. He's sanding out all the scratches on the outside and leaving the chips for me, but he's getting those sanded. So speedometer is also fixed. The tube was disconnected at the drive. Sorry, this video is mostly just updates, but trying to actually get shit done instead of film, which is kind of hard sometimes. But now I'm gonna work on this docking light, and then after that we're good to finish up fiberglass, which I might follow him. He's getting them with the 600 because they're really not that deep, and then I'll follow up with the 800,000 and buff. So there's your update. I might set the camera up while we sand and hopefully get some of this done. Alrighty, good morning everybody. We are back for the next day. Got some parts in. So yesterday I was muted, didn't realize that. But the fitting out of the fuel pump that I was talking about cracked. You can see there's the top half of the 90 degree. So when I went to tighten it up, because it was leaking, I saw that right in the beginning, but we let it run anyway. And it shut off. We went through the ignition system, everything was okay there. We put the new coil in it and it helped the spark a little bit, but it wasn't enough to get it going. And that was because there was no fuel in it. So I popped off the rail at the top at the carb. There was no fuel in it. We took it off of the boat's fuel line. We checked the fuel filter and all that stuff, and then hooked it up to a jerry can and then got some fuel up to it. Tested the pump, and the pump was pumping great up to the rail when it had fuel there to suck. And then I went to tighten up the fuel line to get rid of the leak because I thought maybe it was cavitating a little bit, and that's when I broke it. So here's our new part, brass 90. Got the right threads. We're gonna wrap these in thread tape so they don't leak, but I'm gonna start on that. I'm gonna get this in and hopefully get this engine running so we can let this sit. On the Starcraft today, I'm gonna mix up some gel, which we'll go through that because I think that's interesting and what you guys might wanna see, but there's a bunch of little chips and stuff down here on the back of the boat. So I'm gonna get that going. Grant's gonna keep on sanding and stuff. And then while that dries, I'm gonna mess with the docking light, and then I'm gonna finish up the sanding on the boat, and Grant's gonna start cleaning the boat, and then hopefully we'll sand buff everything at the same time, and then we can shrink wrap it, and hopefully this thing works so we can get these two done. I do have that other boat which has the power steering cooler, which might be its own separate video because I ordered it like 2 weeks ago and it's just now getting delivered today, and they said it was going to be here earlier in the week, so it's kind of whatever. But we're back. I'm going to probably just give you guys updates on this, and then I'll set up a time lapse when I start sanding on the Starcraft and laying the gel. So let's get into it. All right, everybody, so this boat is finally fixed. There was a muted section. I'll kind of go through it later, but I justified doing the coil. The coil did test bad and it was having weak spark. The final issue on it was, one, it was running out of fuel. That's why it was dying on us. Two, when it was getting hot, so from ignition power on the key switch, that's common on like the old Mercs and stuff, ignition power from key switch all the way to the coil was like 5,000 ohms. It was way too high. There was an issue. So I went from the ignition wire here to before the main plug on the back of the engine, and from there 0.1 ohms, everything's great. Through the plug up to the coil, it still had the issue. So I essentially, the harness was all spliced together. It had a bunch of different butt splices, stuff like that. I took out that entire harness and I remade a new one. So with the brand new harness, put it all back together and jumped the plug down there, which it's still removable, but nobody should be removing that, hopefully, back on its own fuel system and everything, and it fires right up. And this is after being hot. This is after we ran it for another hour and everything. So I'm confident in this fix. We have a definitive answer where there was an issue with the wiring, and as it was getting hot, heat creates resistance as it is, and with the issues with the wire, it was creating too much resistance to where we would have the spark tester on and it was just a dim little spark. And after we did that, even cranking, it has that bright spark. Everything's good. So I'm happy with this one. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna winterize this, get the boat cleaned up, everything put back together, and we'll be done with this. Grant's still sanding on that boat. He's up to 1,000 grit, so he's gonna finish up the half of it with 1,000, and then I'm gonna buff that half while he sands the other half. And after that, we'll do a little time lapse of shrink wrapping that boat, and we'll get them both put away, called the customers, and we'll be set. But that feels good. I think it was 4 other Marinas couldn't fix this old girl. ST Marine good. All right, so what time is it? 12:31. Probably be done by like 3. See you later. Alrighty, everybody, we are finished up for the day. I'm not gonna end up shrink wrapping it in this video, but we got the boat sanded out, buffed out. That's all done. All of the interior work is finished up, and we're done with these boats. Super happy I finished up the that Mastercraft that we had out there. Got that one figured out. That was actually pretty difficult, but these boats are finished up and ready to go. So that's where I'm gonna leave you. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do have some reels that go up while I'm not posting on YouTube. I've been getting the reels up, ST Marine WI on Facebook, and I believe ST Marine WI on Instagram. Don't really post much on the bush fishing Instagram anymore, but make sure to check those out. And if you want any ST Marine or bush fishing merch, first link down in the description below. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Bye.